can turn it around and have a look at the writing that's been hiding underneath.
So no one's seen that writing for 4,000 or 5,000 years?
Yeah, the only person that's seen it previously is the one who wrote it.
For more than 100 years, an ancient Sumerian tablet was believed to describe a single great flood that nearly wiped out humanity. But a controversial reinterpretation suggests scholars may have been reading it all wrong. Instead of telling the story of one disaster, the tablet appears to record the rise and fall of 7 civilizations that existed before ours. According to this interpretation, we are living in the 8th civilization, and the tablet may have already revealed how our own story ends. The tablet that reveals 7 lost worlds. The story begins in the ancient city of Nippur, one of the oldest religious centers in Mesopotamia. During excavations in the late 19th century, archaeologists uncovered thousands of clay tablets containing records of kings, trade, religion, and daily life. Among them was one damaged tablet, later catalogued as CBS 10673, that would eventually become the focus of an extraordinary debate. For decades, scholars believed the tablet was simply another version of the famous Mesopotamian flood story. Since parts of the text resembled other ancient flood traditions, researchers naturally interpreted it as describing one catastrophic event that nearly wiped out humanity. That explanation remained widely accepted for more than a century. Years later, however, supporters of a controversial reinterpretation suggested the tablet had been misunderstood. They argued that the repeated passages weren't poetic descriptions of one disaster, but separate entries describing different civilizations. Using comparisons with thousands of surviving cuneiform texts, they proposed that each repeated section introduced a new world, a new catastrophe, and another beginning. If that interpretation is correct, the tablet tells a completely different story. Instead of recording one great flood, it appears to describe 7 civilizations that supposedly rose, flourished, and disappeared long before our own. Each civilization ends differently, suggesting history unfolds in repeating cycles rather than through a single defining catastrophe. Although many historians regard this interpretation as symbolic rather than historical, the similarities between the tablet's disasters and real natural events continue to fuel debate. Whether those similarities are coincidence, symbolism, or echoes of ancient memories remains uncertain. But if the tablet truly records 7 civilizations before ours, one question immediately stands out. If each civilization met a different fate, what exactly destroyed the first 6? And why do those ancient disasters seem strangely familiar today? The lost worlds that vanished one by one. If the reinterpretation is correct, then humanity wasn't the first civilization to walk the earth. According to the tablet, 6 worlds had already risen and fallen before our own story even began. The first world described on the tablet is Eridog, a world said to have existed long before the earliest cities of recorded history. The tablet describes its destruction as the breath of Anu, a fiery event from the sky that left the land scorched and transformed into glass. Some researchers have compared this description to a massive asteroid airburst capable of generating extreme heat, although no archaeological evidence directly supports that connection. The second civilization, Bad Tabira, was remembered for mining and metalworking. According to the tablet, its people prospered by using the Earth's resources until poisonous gases contaminated the land, rivers, and crops, forcing the civilization into decline. Modern readers have compared this account to volcanic gas releases or other geological disasters, though the interpretation remains speculative. The third civilization, La, is portrayed as a society devoted to observing the heavens. Its downfall came when darkness covered the sky, temperatures dropped, and sunlight disappeared for an extended period. Some have linked this description to the effects of a major volcanic eruption or asteroid impact, events capable of blocking sunlight and disrupting the global climate. The fourth civilization faced a slower but equally devastating disaster. Instead of sudden destruction, The tablet describes rising seas swallowing coastlines and forcing entire communities to abandon their homes. The fifth civilization, often associated with Shuruppak, experienced a long period of climatic upheaval. The tablet describes advancing ice followed by widespread flooding as temperatures changed. Rather than a single catastrophic event, it portrays generations struggling to survive an environment that was rapidly transforming around them. The sixth civilization met perhaps the most frightening end of all. According to the tablet, an invisible sickness spread from settlement to settlement along trade routes, destroying communities before they understood what was happening. Modern readers often see similarities to epidemic disease, though historians caution against interpreting ancient texts through a modern scientific lens. Whether history or mythology, every civilization follows the same pattern. It rises, prospers, and eventually disappears. 6 civilizations had already vanished. But according to the tablet, the seventh collapse changed everything and inspired the mysterious Anunnaki to leave one final warning for whoever came next. The Anunnaki's final warning. According to this interpretation of the tablet, the seventh civilization marked a turning point unlike any before it. After 6 worlds had supposedly risen and fallen, the pattern had become impossible to ignore. Each civilization reached remarkable heights, yet everyone ultimately collapsed through a different catastrophe. The lesson wasn't that one disaster threatened humanity. It was that no civilization was immune to change. Unfortunately, parts of the tablet describing the seventh world have been badly damaged, leaving many details open to interpretation. Even so, the surviving passages describe a time of widespread upheaval. Violent earthquakes shook the land, rivers changed course, mountains crumbled, and familiar landscapes were transformed beyond recognition. This is where the mysterious Anunnaki become central to the story. Rather than preventing each catastrophe, the tablet portrays them as observers who carefully recorded every civilization's rise, achievements, mistakes, and eventual downfall. That idea is linked to the legendary Tablets of Destiny. In traditional Mesopotamian mythology, these sacred tablets represent divine authority and cosmic order. Supporters of the reinterpretation, however, suggest they also symbolize a record of accumulated knowledge passed from one civilization to the next. The message is simple. Even the greatest civilizations eventually collapsed. Knowledge alone wasn't enough to save them. The tablet doesn't end by looking back at the worlds that vanished. Instead, it turns toward the present, claiming that humanity is now living in the 8th civilization, and its greatest challenge may still lie ahead. The 8th world, and the future of humanity. The final section is what makes this interpretation of the tablet so controversial. After describing the rise and fall of 7 earlier civilizations, the story shifts to an 8th. According to supporters of the theory, that 8th civilization is our own. Unlike the previous worlds, the tablet doesn't focus on floods, poisonous gases, or changing climates. Instead, it suggests humanity's greatest threat may come from its own achievements. One passage refers to what has been translated as a great fire weapon, a phrase that has sparked decades of debate. Many historians believe it is symbolic language typical of ancient mythology, while others have suggested it could represent humanity's ability to create destructive technologies. Because of that interpretation, some people have compared the passage to the development of nuclear weapons. Others point to physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, whose interest in ancient literature has often been linked to discussions about humanity's growing destructive power. While these comparisons remain speculative, they continue to fuel curiosity about whether ancient stories can still hold lessons for the modern world. Supporters of the theory also note that similar ideas appear in other cultures. Hindu tradition describes repeating ages known as yugas, while Hopi and Aztec traditions tell of earlier worlds that ended before new ones began. Although these stories developed independently, they all share a common theme. Civilizations rise, decline, and are eventually replaced. Most historians see these traditions as mythology rather than historical records. Even so, they raise an interesting question. Why do so many ancient cultures tell remarkably similar stories about repeating cycles of destruction and renewal? Whether history or mythology, the tablet leaves one message. No civilization is guaranteed to last forever, and every generation faces challenges of its own making. Whether the tablet is myth, symbolism, or a forgotten memory, its final message remains the same. Civilizations don't always fall because of outside forces. Sometimes the greatest threat comes from the choices they make themselves. What do you think? Was this ancient tablet preserving forgotten history, passing down symbolic warnings, or simply telling one of humanity's greatest myths? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next mystery.